Meanwhile, a Delaware man who carried a Confederate flag through the Capitol building during the January 6th insurrection has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. Photos of Kevin Seafried carrying that Confederate flag became a symbol of January 6th. The 53-year-old was convicted of 5 charges stemming from his participation in the riot, including obstruction of an official proceeding. And now a new book is offering a revealing look at the extremist group, the Oath Keepers, by the former spokesman for the far-right group. Just months after founder Stuart Rhodes and top lieutenant Kelly Meggs were convicted of seditious conspiracy in connection with the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The Perils of Extremism is a vivid first-hand account of Jason Van Tatenhove's time embedded with the militia group. Van Tatenhove also details his time testifying before the January 6th House Select Committee, and Jason joins us now. Thank you for being on this morning. What is your warning about extremism moving forward in this country?
I think we just need to take it very seriously. I think that there has been a cycle where we've seen these events that they've partaken in and plugged into have escalated from Bundy Ranch through to January 6th. And where do you go in a cycle of escalation from a failed coup of the Capitol building? I mean, it continues to escalate. It continues to ratchet up. And I think right now we're kind of in a holding period, waiting to see what's going to happen next, waiting to see whether these groups will regroup, what's going to happen with the next election cycle. So I think we just need to not become complacent and think that everything is over. There's still a lot of work to do, I think, to go.
Yeah, there is a lot of work to do. I would agree with you about that. And given your special insight, what are the mistakes politicians, leaders are making in trying to turn this around and trying to come back to a shared American experience? Because that seems to be one of the problems with extremism, is those who go off to the far right and join a cult or a group that is based on conspiracy theories and promulgates violence, is that they do not feel like they're having a shared experience.
I think we need exit ramps. I think we need to be more understanding. A large portion of the country has kind of drank the Kool-Aid. In order to get back to a sense of normalcy, we need to begin listening to one another again. We need to start treating each other as human beings again, and really dial down on the violence rhetoric. I mean, political violence is becoming a common occurrence. It seems every day in our news feeds, it's popping up again and again. And I think that's just from largely a breakdown in treating each other as human beings. I think that there's been a large divide between rural and urban America, and we need to look at what has led to those divides and begin listening to one another again.
So how do we do that, given the extremes? I totally agree with you that we need to understand each other, meet people where they are. But how to do that? If you're talking with someone who is, ginned up with conspiracy theories, from either the vaccines to what happened on January 6th, and when facts are completely not in agreement, and I'm not trying to set you up here, I'm truly asking, are we missing something in our approach to reaching out to the other side when it comes to creating an understanding that you say will help give people exit ramps?
I think that we need to really take a look at the advent of conspiracy theory. It has been the lifeblood of these movements, and it's ever evolving. We need to really look at teaching critical thinking skills again. I think we've largely lost that, and teach our children and teach each other when we're consuming media and we have a strong emotional reaction. That's a red flag, and we need to step back and examine, why am I having this strong emotional reaction? But we've also got to get back to checking sources and really digging into things as far as conspiracy theories go, because what conspiracy theories do is they hook us with an emotional outrage that kind of overrides our critical thinking skills. And that leads us to places like January 6th. I think we also need to look at, what has worked for cult deprogramming techniques. I think, there are a lot of similarities between what has happened in some of these communities that have been so affected by conspiracy theory and this rhetoric, and, what we've seen previously in cult communities. And we need to look at some of the ways that we found to get to better places from there. I don't have the answers. I'm just a guy who went and got himself embedded with the Oath Keepers. But I think it all starts with human conversation again, trying to reach out. I mean, we can't even, it seems like over the holidays, we're divided. We can't even invite, parts of our family over for holiday dinners because we're so divided as a country. And I think that's indicative of where we are as a country politically. And we need to really look at finding ways to re-engage with conversation again.
Jason, you've written before and talked to us about, and write again in the book about social media being gasoline on this fire, and certain social media channels, not even the ones we talk about a lot, like Twitter and Facebook, and they're having hearings about that now, about what they did around January 6th or didn't do around January 6th to help protect the country. But there are so many other avenues, and as you write and say, most of the people who believe these things will never have to encounter or be confronted by an opposing point of view because of the reinforcement and the echo chamber they get. What do you do about that side of it, where people can find community and other people who believe conspiracy theories like them without hearing the other side of it anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, part of that is the algorithms that have happened in social media, and I think it's just kind of this perfect storm. I don't know if it was intentional or just, it just manifested, but it seems to have played a significant part that, when you're in these echo chambers, you hear nothing but reinforcing narratives that are not giving the other side of the story. So, I think we've got to get offline more. I think I've completely gotten off social media. And I think that has done wonders for me. And I encourage others to look at life without social media. But it's larger than that. It's not just social media. It's what we're getting through our radio media, through our news feeds, our TV media. Again, I think it's just re-engaging on a human level. We've got to get out there and talk with our neighbors. We've got to get out there and become active. We've got to become, no one's coming to help us. This all is going to be, we're going to be the ones who have to fix this. So I think re-engaging with, local campaigns and local politics is a good start, local activism. But we've got to get off the computers and really engage as human beings again.
Hey, Jason, let's back up to your reference to the Kool-Aid that you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. What happened in your life to make you not only drink the Kool-Aid, but swim in the Kool-Aid in a tremendously violent, disturbing, damaging outfit? What happened to you?
Well, I had moved from Colorado to Montana. I had kind of become isolated. I had moved my family up to rural Montana. I was going to start a new tattoo shop up there. I had a tattoo shop in Colorado that I had sold and moved on. But that didn't work out. And, I kind of was spinning my wheels. I kind of was lost. And I think being in a vulnerable place, my wife was medically disabled. Her health was not doing well. Things just weren't going as I had planned. And I think when things aren't going as someone has planned in their life, and you're in a vulnerable place, you're more apt to take in this media. And I know for me, it was Alex Jones. It was, the InfoWars and my father that I was trying to reconnect with was listening to a lot of Rush Limbaugh. So I just found myself in this new culture, being exposed to new media. And I was at a low point in my life, and that really I didn't know what I was doing. And here comes along this group that wanted me to be the national media director after embedding with them for Bundy Ranch and a couple other standoffs. And they paid really well, and better than I made, working mainstream media, working for a local newspaper affiliate. They tell you they have something important for you to do and something that's important to the country, and they give you a sense of community. And I think fostering that sense of community is one of the ways that they're able to tap into people's psyches and really kind of get their hooks into them.
Jason Van Tatenhove, thank you very much for that insight. Thanks for being on this morning. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.